So we have the affidavit from J.P. Miller's first wife, Alison. And she says that she was married to J.P. for approximately 16 years. That's a long time to be with J.P. Miller. Bless. Poor woman. She's wanting to get their custody situation modified. She says that she is strictly limiting the amount of information shared in this affidavit and provided to the court. She says that she is providing this affidavit in support of her verified motion for an ex parte order and expedited temporary hearing, and that she has a she has a large amount. She has a large amount of evidence to support her concerns and allegations contained in her verified complaint and motion. However, until such time as proper safety measures are in place, I am strictly limiting the amount of information shared in this affidavit and provided to the court. AKA, I got the receipts, bitch, but you ain't gonna hear about them until I'm protected. She really said protect me first. I ain't saying shit. She goes on to say that JP told her, in addition to the affair with Micah, that he had employed prostitutes and had been sexually inappropriate with several underage female members of their church. He blamed his immoral behaviors on the abuse that he experienced for years by his father, Wayne Miller. The church requested that JP enroll in an extensive addiction program. However, despite him promising her that he would, to her knowledge, that never happened. Kisses, promises made, but surprise, it didn't happen. And she goes on to talk about how the affair between JP and Micah had tore their personal and church families apart and caused unimaginable pain, and that the affair did not just ruin a marriage, it ruined the entire community. And she says that at the time that the church learned about JP's affair with Micah, the church was operating under the beliefs of the old bylaws of the church. So when the council voted to have JP temporarily step down from the head pastor position so he could seek treatment for his self-reported addictions and focus on his restoration instead of following the direction of the church leaders, JP held a meeting and informed the council the new bylaws were invalid and therefore the old bylaw. He basically told him he had 100% decision-making authority. Sorry, not sorry. That sucks to suck. JP, he basically pulled the ultimate power move. And everybody saw JP for who he really was and became worried about his integrity. And the mask came off and everybody saw JP's true colors. And as a result, almost the entire congregation then was like, bye, Felicia. Bye. Left. And JP had to start from scratch then. But he ain't doing that shit again. She goes, after JP informed me that he had been inappropriate with minor female members of our church and disclosed to me the identity of these girls, I immediately contacted them to encourage them to come forward. JP confessed, and Alison immediately went into action mode to try to get justice. As she should. Although they each shared with me detailed accounts of what JP did to them, they were too afraid to report or testify in court. They were terrified. Can you blame them? No. I learned they feared to report JP, I went to the police department for the purpose of making a report and requesting an investigation. However, I was in essence told by police officials that nobody would believe me because JP was a well-known pastor and we were in the middle of a divorce. So, seriously, the police told her nobody would believe her because JP was a big shot pastor and they were divorcing. Frustrating, very frustrating. So, without the testimony of the victims, there was little else I could do to prove what JP had done to ensure he was held accountable. These poor women. Please, karma. I began to realize the power JP seemed to have over leaders and officials in our community, and based upon having limited proof, there was no way for me to ensure JP was held accountable and prevented from continuing to victimize innocent people. Given the circumstances, I decided the best way for me to protect my children was to reach an agreement with JP that contained terms I believed would ensure their safety and encourage him to seek treatment. JP had periodic periods of visitation with our children. However, we agreed JP's visitation with our daughter, who is a subject to this action, would be restricted to solely daytime periods of visitation. Daytime visits only. Sounds like Alison knew JP needed some serious boundaries. Following my divorce from JP, married his then paramour, Micah Miller. Prior to my knowledge of JP's sexual relationship with Micah during our marriage, both she and her husband at the time, Jeremy, became very close to our family. Micah did not have a close relationship with her mother, and to some degree, I took her under my wing as an older daughter. I taught her to drive, took her to get her driver's license, and allowed her to care for our children. Shared family meal times together in her home and provided her guidance and advice, and she began working in the church. Despite the initial destruction caused by JP's infidelity, for several years, there was a part of me that was relieved to know Micah would be present in the home when JP had periods of visitation with our children. And I viewed her as a safety net for my children. So Alison found the silver lining of Micah being around. Who knew that would turn into such a disaster? Although our children continued to struggle with the anger and disappointment they felt towards their father, often refusing to share visitation periods with him for a couple of years, appeared to be not quite as tumultuous. The kids were not having it with their dad. It's bullshit. But things seemed to calm down for a bit. 2021 through 2022, things gradually began to change to the detriment of our children and have escalated to the severity of where things are today. JP and Micah began having severe marital difficulties, and our children were placed directly in the middle of this discord. JP would preach sermons on Sundays. On the Sundays, our children were with him, present in the congregation, disparaging Micah and indicating she had mental health issues, and eventually putting her in a mental hospital. The children were subjected to JP calling Micah crazy one day, and then her being back in the home at their next visit with their father, assuring them she was fine. Those poor kids. They never knew what to expect, and the intense unpredictability and marital discord between JP and Micah negatively impacted them all. The unpredictability was too much. Can't blame the kids for being stressed out. On one occasion, while picking up our daughter, I observed holes in the walls, hinges off the doors, and pieces of paper taped to the wall with negative affirmations about Micah. Seriously, holes in the wall and notes trashing Micah. What a mess. JP told me and our children that Micah was delusional and speaking different languages and seeing things that were not there. JP agreed it was not safe for our children to be in his home, and for periods at my request did not insist that they stay with him overnight. He would pick them up from school and bring them home after taking them to dinner. He began spending time with his now paramour, Susie, who was the mother of one of the boys that plays on our son's soccer team. JP began using our son to facilitate times he could spend with Susie, which our children were well aware of. Their friends talked about it, and it caused them tremendous amount of embarrassment. Oh, great. Another affair, and this time the kids' friends were talking. That's embarrassing. That is so embarrassing. I learned JP was exposing our children to yet another one of his adulterous affairs. I confronted JP and Susie and told them to not let it happen again. JP called me the day Susie's husband died in an alleged drowning accident, extremely upset and asking me to pray, which was incredibly bizarre. Susie's husband's sudden death? So Susie's husband's sudden death. A little suspicious. Susie's husband's sudden death is a little suspicious if you ask me. Based upon information and belief, just 2 weeks prior to this incident, Susie's husband had confronted JP and asked him to leave his wife and children alone. Based upon information and belief, just 2 weeks prior to this incident, Susie's husband confronted JP and asked him to leave his wife and children alone. It is chilling to know that the spouses of both Susie and JP are now dead from tragic events. It was around this time JP's mental health seemed to be really spiraling out of control, and he began acting even more bizarre. He informed me that he was getting into buying guns and shooting, and he had purchased a gun safe for his home. Guns now. Yeah, okay. As a convicted felon, he is not allowed to have weapons. However, he managed to get a police chief from the church to assist with expunging his record. Further, he was given a special police badge that says pastor to utilize if he ever gets pulled over, so they will let him go. You can't make this shit up. That is, with the constant discord between JP and Micah and JP's own self-reported mental health struggles, the thought of JP having access to guns in his home terrified me for the safety of our children. Guns and mental health issues don't mix. No wonder she was terrified. Ugh. It was about this time JP began declining to pick up our children for visitation, informing me that his mental health was not well enough for him to share time with them. Of course, given the circumstances, I would have refused to let them go. However, having it be JP's idea made it far easier and safer, and prevented the necessity of filing a legal action with the court. JP not picking up them kids was a blessing in disguise. Easier for Alison and less drama for everyone. One evening, JP informed me that Micah had a breakdown and was on her way to my house and requested me to hold her when she arrived because he had the police coming. It was my understanding that Micah was trying to get away from JP because he was trying to have her committed again. It is my understanding that Micah was trying to get away from JP because he was trying to have her committed again. Our children were at home and once again subjected to the severe discord. Micah began calling me for advice on how to free herself from JP and for guidance as to counselors and people to assist her. I prayed with Micah and did all I could to provide her with sound advice and guidance. Alison sounds like a great woman. Micah shared information with me about the things my children were exposed to while in the care of JP and warned me that my children were in danger while in his care. I have several recordings and text messages that verify this information, and it causes me tremendous concern about the safety and welfare of our children while in the care of JP, especially now that Micah is no longer present. Micah was warning Alison about the danger. I was married to JP for 16 years. Although my story and what I lived through with JP is different in some ways, many of the details shared with me by Micah are so similar to my own experiences with JP that I know she was being truthful. JP, it sounds like you have a lot to answer for, buddy. Based upon information and belief, JP's mental health and deviant sexual addictions have only worsened since the time we were married, and I do not believe our children are safe in his care. It's clear Allison's main concern here is her kids' safety. Do you blame her? Since Micah's death, I have requested that JP not see our children. Initially, I was okay with phone calls and text messages. However, when recently texting them, JP has inappropriately discussed the current state of events with them, sharing his plans of suing everyone and being a millionaire. Seriously, JP? Our children do not need to be subjected to any discussion about the current situation, as I am doing all I can to prevent them from being exposed to the massive social media and national coverage for their privacy and protection. I have refrained from making any public statements or comments. Our children are highly upset and do not wish to have contact with their father, which at this time I strongly believe is in their best interest. Protecting the kids from the media circus. Respect, Alison. With a classy girl. With a, my goal is to not keep our children from their father permanently, but until such time as he can undergo adequate psychological testing, following all recommendations to ensure his mental stability and ensure contact with their father is in their best interest. So she's not cutting him out forever, just until he gets his act together. Fair enough. Currently, JP is being threatened and followed on social media by people from around the world. Placing our children in that situation and subjecting them to social media coverage or involvement is simply not in their best interest. The last thing that they need to be caught up in, really, JP's social media drama and his bullshit. Oh, she's better than me. She is better than me. She is. Alison is a better woman than I am. So, yeah, that's absolutely insane. Follow for more updates. And remember, always protect your peace and your kids.